I love to cook at home, and having good kitchenware makes all the difference in the world. Not only does good equipment make prep and cooking easier, but it makes it more enjoyable. This is why both Joel and I are huge fans of Made in Cookware. Their wide range of cookware, from pots and pans to knives and flatware and even glassware, are designed to be professional quality for right in your home. Joel is a big fan of their knife sets, and I just upgraded all of our stock pots and saucepans to Made in stainless steel ones. This goes along with my many other stainless steel, carbon steel pans that I have. I have over a dozen pieces, and I absolutely swear by Made In's products. Next, I'm getting a set of beer glasses. Yes, beer glasses for the whole podcast crew. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN. Find out why pros like Grant Achatz, Sean Brock, Nancy Silverton, and Eric Repair trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN, and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast that I had probably about a month to try to come up with something for the intro, but I didn't. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as all of the other services that Joel says that I shouldn't really have to mention. My name is Mike Urevich, and I am back. I was a captive, won't say by who, for a little while. But I have escaped, and now my captors are my best friends. I think that's called something. But with us, as always, I forgot what the actual term for that is. Stockholm Syndrome.
Helsinki Syndrome? Or is
yeah,
that,
there we go.
No, that's hostages, I think.
Oslo Syndrome. It's somewhere in Scandinavia. With us, as always, is Joel Codner. No witty
Great
thing.
What?
No witty thing.
That's fine. Look, it's good to have you back. You know, now the team is complete once again, and I can return to just phoning it in and, you know, shitting on the industry I'm in.
Good to have
the part
plans
that I like. That's what everyone tunes in for. All of those millions of subscribers out there. We also have Kevin Abbott, who is, here.
Talk about phoning it in. Wow. This is going to be a great episode, guys. Listen, it's an honor and a privilege, as always, to be with you and with all of our listeners. I will say that having you gone was very upsetting to me, just not having you on the podcast as our guiding light. I will say that I think Joel and I got along just fine. We had a decent show last time out. We would have had a really, really good conversation if Joel hadn't been talking so much. If he had just let me speak for that entire time, I think it would have been a little bit better. But you're here to moderate now and just keep everything balanced, which I think is an important thing.
I would also like to, at some point during this episode, take advantage of the 10 minutes that I have to rebut everything in that episode that Kevin said that I could have. And
that's got to be on our Patreon. Fuck that.
And then he gets 5 minutes after that. So I recall.
The funny thing is I remember none of this, so you have a better recollection of that because you actually listened to our show. I think you should submit, instead of this, I agree with Joel at this point because we got a lot of stuff to get to, Mike, right? We got to get down. We're doing news. breaking news in the beer industry that we got to talk about. So I think you should submit your rebuttal in a essay form, and then we can just put that up as a PDF online and people can kind of peruse it at their own discretion. What do you think?
Perfect.
I think we should release it as an NFT.
Oh.
Yes, United We Drink's getting in on this. I like the idea.
Here we go, Web 3.0. All right. So before we get into an episode chock full of news, what are we drinking tonight, gentlemen? Joel?
Water. Fun water.
You spent a weekend drinking pastry stouts, crispy boys, and watching some hardcore and punk rock music, and you're back on your water kick, huh?
Well, it's not because of that. It's, I'm like I've said before, I'm just not drinking as much as I used to. Having some weird heart palpitations in the past couple of days, so I also quit caffeine today. Just trying to regulate here. And I really didn't drink that much in Orlando anyway. I had one crispy boy, 1 5-ounce of a pastry stout, which had 40 fucking adjuncts in it. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll humor the place. I'll try it. It was every bit as bad as I expected.
Wow. Well,
Joel
I have to
doing things to his body that he knew would be bad to his body. So, brand.
I had an Italian beef at Portillo's twice and felt perfectly fine.
Is that a thing? Like I've never heard of that place before.
It's a Chicago thing.
Okay. But they have a location in Orlando, I take it?
So they've got a new one in Orlando, which, amazingly, is right next to the new White Castle, which we did not check out. But lines were surprisingly long still there. And they're also building a Taco Bell right next to that. So thank Christ I do not live in Orlando.
Is this on like iDrive?
I don't know. I think it's Lake Buena Vista.
Oh, okay. Kevin, what are you consuming tonight?
Well, I've got a couple things. I've got a sparkling water, and Mike, I don't want to excite you too much, but there is lime flavoring in it. I know that you get really freaked out about that. It's an amazing find
Innovation
for you to find water with lime. Mine is a Kirkland brand lime water, which I think is also very new and very, very select. I have several, as I said. I also have some Irish whiskey. And I've got some Infinite Enigma triple IPA from a little brewery called Barrel of Monks.
I like the Kirkland brand waters. We get them at the brewery for the brewery staff and for consumers. I really like their lemon one. It's probably my favorite lemon flavor of the brands that I've had before. But I like the Kirkland brand stuff.
Mike, you are wild, man. Lime, lemon. What's going to happen next?
I like citrus.
Don't even try grapefruit, bro. It's going to blow your mind.
I've had that one too. I have my can of Liquid Death with me, but I also have some High Lie in a beautiful glass that comes to us from Made in Cookware. It is from their beer glass line of glassware, and I have a couple glasses for you guys as well for whenever the next time, which I should have given to you, Kevin, when you were over this past weekend.
You should have. You really should
Forgot
have.
about that. And then I also have a little sipper of some Glenlivet for when this goes down.
He's 3-fisting it.
Yeah. Kevin is too. Kevin always has two alcoholic beverages and a water. So
I've still got my little bottle of Malort over here, but also there is an old can of unopened Polar Lime as well. Don't get excited, Mike.
very excited. Is it refrigerated?
No, but it's cold as fuck in here right now, so it's probably good enough.
And your heart is cold, so it'll go down just fine. All right, so like we said, we're going to go over some news pretty much the whole episode. A lot of stuff has been happening over the last few weeks to a month in the beer industry. closures, mergers, just a lot of stuff going on. First of which I think that we're going to start with is, I think it's the oldest one. I'm not looking at fucking bylines, but probably just by a day, is the announcement that Hair of the Dog Brewing in Portland is going to be closing their doors. Excuse me. After over 20 years of business, founder Alan Sprintz announced the closure on Facebook on February 14th. They opened their doors in 1993. They're one of those like old school, like big ABV, big beer,
Big hype.
breweries. I'm sorry?
Big hype.
Yeah.
Big trade value.
I forget what was
Back in the
what was
day,
the
at
one that
least.
was like really stupidly sought after, like Dave or something.
Well, that was what I was going to ask is, are they just closing down because they've run out of mundane, boring white guy names to name their beer? Is that what's going on? No more Freds or Steves or Mikes? I'm sorry, Mike,
I need
did
a
just say
Chester
that?
to complete my collection.
Yeah, but it was one of those. I remember Dave. I think I remember Fred. Yeah, I remember back in the day where we were in these, big trading groups and we used to get together for bottle shares all the time. I know people are still doing that to this day, but I haven't been part of a group like that in a long time. But Hair of the Dog beers were always a beer that people got freaked out and excited about when they showed up at one of those events.
Yeah, right. Fred is one of them. Seeing here, Fred American Strong Ale, Adam Old Ale, Blue Dot Double IPA. Those were like some of the big names, and I do recall bottle shares, those popping up and being like, "Oh shit, here's this brewery that is so well known for these styles that they're making." No exact date has been given to their. I'm sorry, it's also over 30 years, almost 30 years of brewing. But he says that he has enough beer to last until sometime into the summer. So that's a big name deciding to hang things up. Joel, any thoughts on this one? You were the one who actually threw this out onto our Slack channel when it was announced.
Yeah, it was a pretty surprising news, and I think it's fortunate that it kind of falls under the umbrella of like retirement and kind of doing it on their own as opposed to, some sort of outside market forces or a sale of some type. Because, we just seem to be getting hit with like a new sale constantly. It seems like every week there's something new. But looks like he's just kind of hanging it up after all this time. And honestly, what better time to get out with, what we're seeing with... I don't think they can, do they? Did they ever pivot to canning?
I don't recall so.
I mean, I think I've seen their stuff in person like once 10 years ago at a bottle share. I know they never distributed here, so we didn't even go there when we were out that way. So... haven't really had too much experience with their beer, but, they're very well revered in the community. And I know, people are disappointed, but it seems like he's really doing it on his own terms. I mean, the brand is not getting passed off to anyone, or, the brewery isn't getting taken over seemingly. So it really seems like, he kind of did what he wanted to do, and now it's time to go.
Yeah, I think that could be a point of contention to a lot of people, is closing the business as opposed to selling it off to someone who can continue it, or passing it along to a family member, a coworker, someone like that, where someone might think, "Oh, you're so selfish because you don't see that anyone else can carry on the legacy of your brewery." But I mean, this has been this guy's passion and love and business and life for the past 30 years. And maybe he just wants to. He's decided, yeah, this is it. This is the end, and don't need to go any further than that. It's like a TV show that decides, yeah, we're going to end now, instead of drag this out for the next however many years with different writers and different people in charge of production. And it's probably not going to be the same, but you'll tune in because you love it. Appreciate and respect him for being able to say, yeah, that's it. This is the end of this. And thank you everyone for, coming and enjoying, and hope that you remember us fondly.
So, because I get my news in the beer industry from this podcast while I'm doing it, I was not aware of the reason for the closure until you guys described it, which seems very obvious that he's, like you said, hanging it up on his own terms, closing the brewery down. To play devil's advocate, that's the kind of thing someone would say after they're in the industry for a long time, when their business is no longer profitable and losing money, and it would make sense to close the business rather than keep going with it. And I am not saying that is what's happening in any way, shape, or form.
Sounds like you are.
Well, I'm just putting it out there. We know breweries in Florida that when we hear, oh, COVID, oh, this must have led to the closure, and we're like, oh, you were circling the drain a long time ago, right? We don't know their financials. I'm not saying this to be a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I'm just saying this industry is changing a lot, and someone making the decision to do what they're doing now may not just be because they're ready to hang it up or they're tired of doing it and they don't want somebody else to come in. I'm sure there's a lot of factors that play into a decision like this of why you wouldn't sell it to somebody, or why you wouldn't give it to the employees or what have you to carry on the name and the legacy of the brewery. I think that, to me, from the outside looking in, it speaks to the greater industry now as it is, and how it's changing. Because a brewery like that, which I know very little about, I've only had a few beers, seemed to me a long time ago like they were an hype brewery. We all know a lot of them now, and we all know that they're cranking out cans and doing their thing, and they can't make the beer fast enough. But as the industry turns over and the flavor of the month isn't what you make anymore, and there's a new guy on the block that's doing it, 20 years from now, is that a long-term business model? Like, anyone would be very, very happy to get 20 years out of a business, 30 years out of a business. That's a hell of a life cycle, and bravo for that. But it may speak to what the future for some of these other breweries look like 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, Kevin, because I kind of agree in a way. I'm not 100% in agreement. Like, I agree with the notion that we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, because we've been doing this long enough. We've known enough people, known enough breweries to see what goes on publicly versus what's really going on behind the scenes. And that could be everything as big as reasons for closure, all the way down to they released this beer with coconut in it because the original intent was fucked up, and they told us and we know, but that's not what they're posting on social media. Like, we know all that stuff. So there's absolutely a possibility that there are outside factors contributing to this. But what I do like about it is the idea that there doesn't seem to be ego involved here. Like, it's not like a brewery you were probably referencing earlier being like, oh, okay, don't worry, like, we're still going to live on in some form. We'll contract brew a couple of the brands because I know you just love us so much and can't live without us. There's none of that going on. I mean, it's going away, and I kind of like that. It's always scary, the notion of like everything dies, but it's kind of a reality, and I prefer the head-on approach as opposed to like, let's see how much we can suck out of this thing for profit until the end.
Speaking of profit, I would like to add real quick that Kevin is putting out conspiracy theories. So Spotify, if you want to throw us some money, contact us at info@unitedwedrink.com.
And I want to throw out that you guys can't see Joel, but recently he actually had it. That's his new catchphrase, everything dies. And he had it tattooed on his forehead. It's a good look for him. I think it's bold and really fits with the personality, which is a really good thing.
Comic Sans was an interesting font choice.
And
it's jaunty and disturbing.
What's really crazy is I got the artist to do an animated GIF.
Which is also an NFT, bringing it back around to the start of the episode. Guys.
Every time I raise my eyebrows, the words change a little bit.
I just want to reference this. I know we're going to get on to talk about other things, but what Joel was just saying and what I was alluding to is that we don't know what's going on behind closed doors in these businesses, nor should we. We don't need to. These are not our businesses. But in a position, don't forget about closures. In my ownership group at Barrel of Monks and Odd Breed, we're constantly having conversations about what we need to do, and we reference other breweries on a regular basis, and it inevitably comes up where someone goes, well, this brewery's doing this, and they're doing great. And it's usually myself or my partner Keith that'll stab up and go, we don't know that they're doing great. We think they're doing great. Everything looks great on Instagram, and there's people lining up for this beer, or people are talking about this beer, but we never know what's going on behind closed doors. We never know what the books look like. We never know what the financials are fleshing out and what the trajectory of a brewery is going to be, or any business. So it's a really interesting thing when you're on the outside looking in, because we all make assumptions, and I know for a fact that people are making assumptions about my brewery that are probably not true, good or bad.
Speaking of not knowing what's going on behind the doors, I think this is a great segue. The very next day after the announcement of Hair of the Dog closing, word came out that Modern Times Beer out of San Diego was closing half of their retail locations in the United States, scaling back their distribution to focus solely on California and the Southwest of the United States. This is a brand that I think a lot of breweries, like newer breweries, were like, when they're opening, I want to be like Modern Times. I want their business model. But apparently their business model was not doing very well, because when people did things over there and their ownership stepped down and new people took over the books there, they were like, the fuck is going on here? We need to fix this stuff. The Modern Times announced that they were closing their Portland, Oakland, Santa Barbara, and Los Angeles tap rooms. And
Mike, I'm sorry, were those brew pubs? What were those? I'm not familiar.
I know for a fact Portland was a brew pub because it is the former location of Commons Brewing out there, and I had been to the Commons location, and they have a really nice brew setup and kitchen and all of that. Oakland, Santa Barbara, and LA, I'm not sure about. I think LA had a brewery in it, but feel free to correct me. But I think for the most part, those were just retail tap rooms. But I mean, this is half of their tap rooms that they have opted to close. And I mean, it's something to be able to say, hey, we're doing this, but we're staying open, but it's still big news nonetheless.
The thing that shocks me the most about this is that they had so many goddamn tap rooms. That's an interesting business model. I'm sure there are other breweries who have done this, and I know it seems kind of popular out in California, because I feel like right now, someone correct me, Stone has a couple different tap rooms, right?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe something that's popular out there. We've seen this with Cigar City in Tampa, where they had their brew pub. They had a brewery at the airport, and they
Still
had
have
their
that one.
Yeah, that was something that they were operating. So it's the only real familiarity I have with it on a local scale or something that I've been to. But I'm shocked that Modern Times was expanded that quickly and did all that. But you hit the nail on the head. I mean, from one brewery, but just 20 years down the line, Modern Times, man, when some breweries open up in Florida and they really wanted to get in the national consciousness. That's a brewery they wanted to do a collaboration with because that's what would get them on the map. And to see that they're struggling with their business model, I'm not surprised because that's a pretty aggressive business model. Does not mean that they're not doing well with their product line and it's not still in demand, but probably spent a bunch of money in some things that they probably shouldn't have done.
Yeah, I mean, California, I believe, has laws that are very helpful to breweries for opening up just outside tap rooms, and that probably is something that a brewery of that size looks at as a way to expand quickly and sell more beer that doesn't have to go through a 3-tier system. I think I've mentioned before on the show, but and I probably have told both of you, in Pennsylvania, it was the same way. If you have a brewing license, you can open up to, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but up to 25 retail locations under your brewing license, and you can transfer unlimited amount of beer to those retail locations without any additional tax, without any distributor coming into play, and it allows a brewery to really extend themselves and get their name out there more by having more retail reach. And that's something that I would love to see in Florida, but I don't. That's going to be a tough one.
Well, I just don't know how. There's undoubtedly a way to do that right. And hopefully people that are listening to this will give us some examples of many breweries who have done this right and are being profitable in multiple locations all over the country. But it's difficult. The managing multiple businesses and putting in protocols to make these things work in and of itself is really, really difficult. That's why chains and expansion for most restaurants and most, whether it be bars or fast food or whatever, they don't get off the ground because it's really, really difficult to make that work on a large scale. And also with beer, it's really interesting because we all know how it is as far as being local. And from a person who has a brewery in Boca Raton, Florida, in Palm Beach County, who is told in Fort Lauderdale, less than 20 minutes from my brewery, that, no, you're not local, right? You're not a local brewery. You're in Boca. You're not local. When you have that kind of bias, for the lack of a better word, in our community, in our business, brewery open up multiple tap rooms. They're from this area and they open up a tap room over here. I can see people rejecting it. I can see people not flocking behind it because you're just a franchise. You're a McDonald's, man. You're not my local people. And I think that you have to fight that in addition to all the physical and financial and hierarchical problems in a business model like that. It seems very difficult, something I wouldn't want to take on.
Well, as I've said before many times on the podcast, local doesn't mean shit, so it's good that we're not local then.
But you know what I mean, Joel, is that people tend to flock to something that they can hang their hat on, say they're from my hometown, what have you. I mean, it's the reason sports teams work, right? I just think that quality, we know, doesn't always win out, right? The marketing wins out, the local appeal, whatever you can do to brand yourself as a thing that gets out there. And you got an uphill battle when you're coming in as an outsider and trying to claim yourself as a local option, whether good, bad, or indifferent.
And that's why I raised my doubts previously about Sun King coming here. Because it's like, you're going to come, what is it, Indianapolis or wherever they're from? Like, you're going to open a tap room in Florida? Like, who gives a shit?
Oh, also,
Why?
Since then, we've had the announcement that Voodoo Brewing is opening a location in St. Pete. And just the other day, Lord Hobo announced that they're opening a Tampa location.
Oh, yeah. Good luck with that, with all the good fucking beer they've got out there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It seems like folly to me, but if they've got the things in place to make it work, it can be done. It's just very, very difficult. This is hearkening back outside the beer industry. I worked at a restaurant that was in Delray Beach, Florida, extremely successful. We're talking about very busy breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single night, right on the beach, printing money from the out. I wasn't part of the financials, but from as a manager, waiter, sommelier, my position, it seemed that they were printing money. And they found a spot on Deerfield Beach, right on the beach, in a perfect location, the perfect mimic of the entire feel and vibe of the place. And we were only a few miles down the road, and that place crashed and burned within, 3 to 6 months in, it was obvious it wouldn't last. And if they had the place a year, I would be shocked. And this was in a very close location with a business model that was tried and true. It was a 15, 20-year-old business when it started, and just couldn't make it work. It's difficult. It's really, really difficult to take it out of that one location and make it expand to multiples.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I feel bad for, of course, always the staff that were there who were probably blindsided by the whole thing. Maybe even thought like, hey, we're doing pretty well over here. But don't know what is going on in the financials in those books behind closed doors.
I honestly don't have anything nice to say about modern times, so I'm probably just gonna, not say much.
All right,
Joel, you've already said it all. What else we got, Mike?
we have something that actually, based off of Byline, came out right around this same time, but I didn't know about this until this past weekend when you brought this up to me, Kevin, is that Monster Energy, who recently purchased CANarchy, is in talks with Constellation Brands about a merger of their companies. And this is this is crazy on a few fronts. From a personal front, because we have Cigar City, who is a part of the CANarchy brand, who is now part of Monster Beverage Corp., and Funky Buddha under the Constellation Brands, who are here. These are the two original Florida hype breweries, the golden children of brewing in this state, if you will. And I don't think Kevin will. But the idea that those two brands could be in the same family of a company is kind of crazy to think about. But this is Constellation. They are Corona Modelo in America. And Monster Energy, Monster Corp, they are that CANarchy brand plus the energy drinks. Constellation is involved in a lot of the cannabis THC beverage world as well. This is an insane idea that these are potentially going to merge as a company and be a gigantic beverage company with these small-ish craft brands in there.
Such a massive, massive shift. You have to wonder, was this play to merge in place, and the conversation started before they had these conversations with CANarchy? Was it part of it that they would bring some breweries to the table? It's really interesting, and we were, as you said, Mike, we're so much more in tune to it because so many of the two of the big breweries involved in these portfolios are in our home state, and we've had a lot of interactions, either working for them or just being a big part of the culture and going to their breweries and so forth. So I said it before we got on the podcast. I wonder now, when you see these kind of things happen, these mergers, these sales, and I forget about them sometimes, how many people have sold and moved on. We talked about the Bells thing. We talked about Sam Adams. We talked about Dogfish Head. are we going to look back in 5 to 10 years and go, wow, we were in the middle of this great consolidation and this great shift in the way craft beer is done in the United States, and go, we didn't even realize it. We just thought it was Thursday. We just thought it was the next shoe to drop. And all of a sudden, 10 years from now, the amount of craft breweries are cut down by a quarter or a half because we can't compete. Or unless you're on a grocery shelf, there's no reason to even get in the business. I mean, are we in a seismic shift in the industry? And because I want to be shock and awe and scare everybody, I'm going to say yes. And we should all just hug our loved ones and hope for the best. Because that's
all right, guys. I'm leaving to go hug my loved ones. Good show. Joel, first thoughts on this merger, and then follow up on what Kevin was talking about. Potential merger. Sorry.
Right. That news was a surprise to me, too. And I didn't really know about it until you guys brought it up earlier.
It went a week under the radar to me. I don't know how that happened.
Well, I was in the know.
For once. That's your one for the year.
I'll take it. Joel.
Well, I don't know. I'm already annoyed. Truly, I'm annoyed.
They're merging with Truly?
With all of the people who
no, that's Sam
comment
Adams.
On Cigar City's posts about, like, when's Bourbon Barrel fucking Monster Energy coming? You know, there's always a fucking Monster Energy drink comment in all of their shit now, and it's just really obnoxious and childish and unoriginal and fucking hacky and lame.
That's our country now.
Well, yeah. But we're a nation of assholes. But now, like, my worry is that it's going to take these, you know, at least some of them that I like, you know, some of these well-respected brands and make people feel like somehow they are lesser because they are quote-unquote corporate or, you know, conglomerate, whatever fucking keyword you want to use. Like, overall, long-term, I don't know what this means for them as individual breweries. Because, like, we've seen from some experience now, like, how a brewery will merge with other breweries or do this venture capital, whatever the fuck, and, you know, next thing you know, it's like they're sharing resources and they're sharing sales teams, and, you know, it's more of like a giant effort. You know, it's like you've got this army now as opposed to, you know, the small staff you had before, and that can be much better for you, and it could also be a bad thing. But, you know, I'm kind of all over the place on this one. Like, I'm not one of those people who's going to think like, oh, this brewery or that brewery is not cool because of, you know, what this may mean for them. But I think it is, you know, perception is a thing. Just like, you know, Kevin was talking about with a relatively smaller craft brewery trying to expand and people thinking, oh, you know, you're not local. Like, people just have these horseshit perceptions that are very hard to get around. And there's no amount of PR that, you know, that's going to come from corporate that's going to help it. You know, people just have their views on things, and I don't know. It feels very weird to, like, see certain breweries go through, like, this sale and that, and then a merger, and, like, holy shit, like, it just feels like a lot at once. And I feel like this is a trend. Like, we're going to start seeing a lot more breweries buying other breweries, and, you know, just this conglomeration of just, you know, packing all these fucking breweries under one flag. You know, I think there's going to be a lot more of that, and we're seeing it on smaller levels too. Like smaller breweries are buying other small breweries. I don't have any actual references to cite here, but I know I've seen it in the news. It's just that
in our own state is Big Storm, who've bought a number of breweries that were having difficulties, like Fat Point in, I think, Cape Coral-ish or Punta Gorda, somewhere around there. And they bought an Orlando brewery recently. They've been
Tomoka
doing some of that stuff.
Tomoka was recently sold to another brewery in the state of Florida as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that stuff is not surprising with if it's happening on the large scale, it's going to happen on the small scale too.
I mean, sooner or later, the only thing you're gonna need to have a fucking independent logo on your can is just, you know, someone from the Brewers Association has to come by your house and make sure you're brewing in your garage.
I'm on the bandwagon with you, Joel. As much as I'm looking at this and really trying to analyze, because listen, we all have a vested interest in this industry and where our breweries are going, and I'm trying to see into the future and make plans, right? So when I'm talking about a seismic shift, I'm thinking about what is Barrel of Monks going to do to stand out? What is Odd Breed Wild Ale going to do to stand out? How can we continue to brew beer in this landscape, be profitable, and grow? Because that's what we need to do. So that's me signaling the alarm bells and talking about this. But when it comes to the actual breweries that have sold, I'm right there with you. Bell's is probably going to still make great beer, even though they sold, right? Dogfish Head sold to Sam Adams or merged or whatever, and I think 60 Minutes probably still going to taste really, really good. We do a thing at Barrel of Monks, this old favorite Friday, where we revisit like a really, really great beer that people kind of might not be all that high on because it's on supermarket shelves, and apparently that's a bad thing now to some people. And I've featured tons of breweries that are owned by giant corporations and were bought out years ago and will be bought out in the future. And the beers are still really, really good. So, yeah, that doesn't mean anything to the quality of the beer you're producing. At the end of the day, if we really do care about quality, that's an important aspect of it. And we have to keep kind of beating that drum going, listen, Mike, you say you're drinking a High Life tonight?
Yeah.
Do you anticipate High Life is going to be worse anytime in the near future?
No.
Should we stop drinking High Life, even though for the most, I mean, it's still employing people and still a great brand? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the Bell's sale as a super big positive because they get to join an umbrella of a family that includes New Belgium, who I think I can speak for at least Joel and probably you that I think highly of that company. I'm being scolded for speaking for Kevin. I agree very highly of that company. I have, and not just because I have friends that work there, but they make amazing beer. They have their fingers on the pulse of what is going on and are able to dip their toes into it and then jump into a pool of something new and hip and with it, and aren't afraid of change, aren't afraid to evolve. They have a great marketing team behind them, and I think that Bell's joining that team and that family is only going to lead to better things for Bell's as a brewery. Dogfish Head joining with Sam Adams with Boston Beer, I see as a positive for their company as well. Like they get to probably have a much stronger sales force out in the market, backing their brand. And I mean, there are definitely good things. And you know, it's funny. I'm going to be in this industry 10 years in a couple months, and the person who got into this industry 10 years ago would probably be so pissed at the person today with a lot of the things that I say. But I've learned a lot, and my opinion changes based off of things that I've seen, things I've experienced, things that I've learned in this industry. And big corporate doesn't always mean bad. There could be things that are done business-wise that are shitty and shady, but the product could be very good. Like we've all, I think grown to like a number of macro lagers that we would have said at some point probably, no, we don't like that. We're a craft. Joel was talking about that a little bit today on Twitter, and I admitted that I used to drink that Kool-Aid of ragging on macro lagers. Joel looks so fucking pissed right now. I don't know why. But
it's Joel. That's what his face looks like. Don't call him out for that. He can't change his face.
But
I once got smacked in high school because of the look on my face. Totally random.
The only shocking part about that is you said once.
But I mean, one thing really out of this rumored news is there's a potential for some people that work for like Cigar City to have gone through the sale of the company to CANarchy, the sale of the company to Monster Energy, the sale of the company to Constellation brands. Like, that's crazy for someone to potentially have gone through all of that, still be with the company, and you know what? They could probably be very happy once that all that dust settles, because I know that there's a lot of people who were completely happy when the whole CANarchy thing happened. There were some thoughts that, oh, it's going to change, but by the time everything settled in, I'm like, oh, I really like working for this company.
Listen, great beer is great beer, and it can be produced anywhere with good ingredients and people who know what they're doing. And whether it's a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate behind it, or it's just someone, as Joel said, making beer in their garage, those things are not mutually exclusive, right? We can make great beer in a multitude of different ways. Companies that actually care about those brands and want to grow them and hopefully employ more people. I also am sympathetic to the non-corporate, we need to stay local kind of people, because their heart's in the right place. They think that being local means more to the community, that the quality is going to be there. And there are examples of breweries that beers got more shitty as they became more and more prevalent. There's one brand that I can think of. I won't name them here.
Name 5.
I can name one off the top of my head, but I won't, because I don't feel there's a lot of value in it. But there are examples of that happen. There's no doubt about it. And this happens not just in beer. This happens in any kind of food stuff. This is one thing that I will mention. I have a friend of mine who worked in craft beer for 30, 40 years. He was a OG in the industry, worked for several big craft brewers, ended up working for Miller Coors and Budweiser. And when Budweiser wanted to make their American wheat ale, they asked him and a group of people to come up with a recipe, and he came up with a recipe for a nice American wheat ale. And they said, okay, great, this is all good, but we won't be able to make money off this, and we need to change this, and this. And basically ended up tweaking the entire thing to the point that it was undrinkable and a terrible beer. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but that beer is not on the market anymore. So there is examples of, corporate giant businesses trying to create something good and bastardizing it into something bad, because that's the only way they think they can make profits or super serve their clientele. But if these companies are simply going to buy these guys, let them do what they do and do all the things Mike talked about, it could be good for those communities. It could be good for Cigar City. It could be good for, Oscar Blues. And I'm going to continue to support good beer, no matter where it is. Good or bad, big business or small. I'd rather support a giant business making great beer than a brewery down the street making shit.
Correct.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Anyone want to say anything else about those that Monster Constellation thing?
Nope.
All right. So the last bit here that I have is actually something kind of sad, and that is word out of Chicago from a few days ago is Chicago brewery, Twisted Hippo Brewery, was destroyed by a fire. And another local business and some apartments and stuff were all a part of this tragedy. And I haven't really kept up with the news on that, but there's thought that potentially a carbon dioxide tank or a nitrogen tank may have exploded and caused some of this to start or be exacerbated. There is currently a GoFundMe that has been started by a fellow brewery in Chicago to raise money for the business, the staff, and recovery needs out there. As of the recording of this, they have raised over $145,000 for these folks. Joel, you're a Chicago native, a big fan of Chicago beer, a big supporter of people in Chicago beer. How did this hit you?
I'll shamefully admit that I had never heard of this brewery before this terrible news. And I'd like to think I had done my research last year when I was out there, but, this one just slipped by me. To correct something you were saying, just basically the source of the fire. It's very likely that tanks in the brewery exploded for sure, with flammable gases usually present, but I read something recently, and an article I'm looking at confirms it. It looks like some neighboring apartments owned by a landlord with a history of safety violations and code violations were what started it, and it moved over to Twisted Hippo, as well as a gym. I guess that was a neighboring building as well. So,
yeah, I apologize. Now that I read that, it says that the explosions that people heard were likely from those tanks. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. And says the apartments are owned by landlord Gary Carlson, who owns dozens of buildings in the area that have hundreds of code violations, and fire officials are investigating how it started. So, fuck you, Gary. It's really sad. I mean, what's encouraging is that the GoFundMe had surpassed its original goal of 100,000. It is now at 145, and it looks like the goal has been bumped up to 200. So, from what I'm seeing, it looks like the place is definitely getting demolished, and there's really nothing to salvage. Thankfully, no one was hurt or killed, and I don't know. Hopefully, they can, I'm sure take insurance money as well as this GoFundMe, and hopefully do something new and keep going.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It's great that no one was killed in this or anything like that, but holy fuck, it's such a scary thing to hear. And this is only coming a couple weeks after. Wasn't there something that happened at Alarmist with a car?
Oh, yeah, a car had crashed through the front or something like that.
Jesus. Kevin, thoughts about this?
Not a lot. My heart goes out to the people who have been affected by it. I was thinking as you were describing this, because I was not aware of this in any way, shape, or form, and the way you started describing this, Mike, almost seemed like it might have been something that might have started in the brewery itself, which would have been a safety kind of issue. And I was wondering, well, Mike is the safety guy, and I think that if this would have been a safety issue, it's almost like your diacetyl knows. Like when a beer is opened with diacetyl, you can smell it from 4 states away. I feel like when a code violation happens, you have like a spidey sense, and it kind of starts to tingle, and you're like, something's happening in Chicago. So I was there's no way it was a safety thing or a problem with this brewery. And then Joel jumps in and says, no, it was from an apartment complex and that was a thing. I said, well, that keeps Mike's integrity in check. It makes perfect sense because you would have known if it would have been a safety thing or a mistake on the part of the brewery, because these are just things that you know. These are just things that you do. Diacetyl, safety concerns, Mike Urevich. That should be a t-shirt.
Kevin. I need to thank Kevin now because he put one of the most glorious images in my head when he talked about Mike's diacetyl nose and his spidey sense. All I'm thinking is if the hairs in his nose, in his nostrils, go up just like on the arm of Spider-Man when there's diacetyl present.
We the other day we were at the brewery and Ralph was giving me a sample of our Pilsner, one of the first lagers we've ever done, the first lager we've ever done at the brewery, and he was talking about all flavors, and I said, yeah, what am I smelling? He's like, I don't think I get diacetyl. I'm like, well, we certainly would have, because Mike would have told me a week ago.
You're welcome. Now I lost my train of thought.
Then I've succeeded.
Yeah. Thanks, asshole. Yeah, this is a pretty tragic story, and I hate to kind of like this be the last news item, at least that I have. I don't know if Joel has a news. Kevin definitely doesn't.
Yeah, there's something going on in Ukraine. I don't know if you want to get into that.
Why am I laughing about that?
I don't know.
It's terrible. I'm a terrible person.
I'll put the link to the GoFundMe in the description for the show on our website. So go to unitedwedrink.com and find this episode. And in the description for that, there will be a link to the GoFundMe if you want to donate to them and try to help out their staff, their folks over there, and help them try to do something to get back to their normal business, as long as that might take for them to do. It's going to be a long uphill battle, but hopefully they can do something.
Let's hope.
All right. Those are the only news items that I have listed here. Joel, is there anything that has come up that you want to talk about?
I think I am all good on news for the next several decades, honestly. There's too much news.
Well, no one else came up with any ideas for this episode, so fuck it.
Listen, once a year, we do a whole news roundup. I think you should put it in a file, and then we'll report on it 6, 7, 8 months after it happened, and then we'll have the benefit of hindsight, and we can act like we're geniuses.
Ah, yes. When the Bucks won the NBA title, and then the other Bucks won the Super Bowl before that. Yeah.
I think we should have like a yearly in memoriam reel for closed breweries, but then I'll have to figure out how to get a laugh track on this audio.
You'll have to?
Well, that just got also very dark and a little disturbing. I'm sorry to all the closed breweries.
So I have
Joel didn't
like
mean it.
I have a final destination thing in my mind where like it's not where like people who should have been killed get killed later on. What happens is all the terrible things I was supposed to say earlier that I said I'm just not going to say anything at all. Now they're coming out on other topics.
Did he drink that bottle of Malort and we didn't know it?
I did not. It's right here.
I mean, he is pretty angry, and I know that if I drank a bottle of Malort, I'd be extremely angry.
He held up something, but it was just a camel's face.
Well, that's because
there we go.
There's a background. It's technology, Mike. You're supposed to know about these things.
I know.
Do
you?
No, I know nothing. You guys are just lucky I've made it this far on this call. I want to say it's been, 4 episodes in a row? One of them you weren't even on, Mike, and I am killing it. I'm recording things. I'm streaming. Streaming? Is that
You're
one
streaming?
of the things I'm doing? I'm doing
Wait a
things,
minute.
Mike.
Wait.
I'm
now we
doing
got to go look for Kevin possibly
just
streaming this.
just
I'm
like a
doing
typical brewery owner to want credit for things he's supposed to do.
I'm doing technological things, and I'm doing them with at least minimal competency. And that's, like you said, I would like someone to give me an award of some kind.
I'll
Maybe a
talk to your
Dundee.
wife and have her print you out a certificate.
I'll take a certificate any day of the week.
Certificate of completion for this episode.
Participation trophy.
I use Skype. That will be the participation thing. All right, we got off the rails here.
All right, so let's head into last calls here. The last calls is the point in time of the episode where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to speak on whatever we want, uninterrupted, unopposed. You guys definitely failed at that the last episode, or at least talking about one of your last calls. I don't remember which one. I'll start things off. I don't need 10 minutes, but I really did enjoy the episode that you guys did. It took me a little bit of time to actually sit down and listen to it because, believe it or not, I don't listen to the whole episode when I record. I can pick out when you guys are making noise just by looking at the sound waves. But really good conversation about self-distro. I love the conversation about stuff like that. To quickly answer a question about Joel, there is legislation for self-distribution in Florida this year. Despite the guild is not actually talking about it, it is out there, which makes me a little pissed off that they are trying to downplay it and not give it some attention with hopes of just tanking it to where that means like they're not really behind it, or I don't know why. So it kind of pisses me off that they put that out there, but they're not actually behind promoting it. The things that they are behind promoting, I am all for, and I talked about that a couple episodes ago. I think that Kevin's very wrong on certain things about self-distribution, but I do get where he's coming from. I think you are right about a brewery like yourself, it not mattering, but breweries can build that into their opening costs. And if they know that they can legally do it and they want to be able to do it, then that is part of their overhead that they build up their brewery and they can be successful. And Joel is also right about the people who really just only care about a few handful of things and also just care about the idea of being able to do something. I think that that's a big part of that. But also the thing that Kevin said about farmers markets, that would be fucking amazing. And I think a really big game changer for breweries like forget your self-distro. If you can go to a farmer's market and you can sell fucking 5 cases of beer out there each week, fucking that's free money. I mean, not free, but it's money. But yeah, other than that, like you guys had a fun conversation. Yes, I definitely found myself yelling at the speakers in my car a number of times. But I would love to touch on that topic again and get someone who is very much part of that. I mentioned on Twitter Michael Graham from Austin Beer Works, who is a brewery of considerable size and self-distributes throughout the entire state of Texas. And I would love to get his thoughts on opening up a brewery and starting self-distro and continuing to be self-distro 100% to this day, and how they decided to go about doing that and how they are making it still work. So, hey, Michael, the invite's out there. But other than that, yeah, I had a fun time listening. You guys did a good job. Joel?
Well, I had a pretty good time in Orlando this past weekend at Kraken Music Fest. I was very skeptical because I paid for a VIP ticket, which, I was just certain, first of all, everything that I see advertised on Instagram as far as like events in Florida go usually look like some sort of Fire Fest fucking scam. And I'm always very weary. And if there are events that have happened previously, I always check the comments and see people complaining that they got fucked one way or another. They paid extra for a good ticket and didn't get the services or whatever they were offered. And, just Florida being Florida and having almost zero rock scene, it seemed, I was skeptical, but had a really good fucking time. All day festival. It went from being like overcast to sunny and warm to fucking cold as shit by the time we got out of there. And I found a lot of new local bands to support and check out. Not local as if like, the same way we're talking about local beer. I mean, like, yes, they are local, but I don't support them because I think they're better because they're local. I like them, and they happen to be local, so I have a better chance of seeing them live again. And I haven't seen live music in a long fucking time, and it really like reawakened something in me that makes me want to hear a lot more of it. And obviously, with the past couple of years, that was nearly impossible. But Mike, one of your bands, fucking Evergreen Terrace, like I remember hearing them for the first time in your car, and I'm like, the fuck is this guy screaming about? But man, once they hit the stage, it seemed like there were lots of sound difficulties with sound checks and engineering and shit. And these guys hit the stage, and their main vocalist, not the dude who screams about everything, but the other guy, he did like a perfect sound check, came in like a pro. He was like, all right, I need more of this, I need less of that. Like, let's, they fucking got it together real quick. And then it's an amphitheater, but they blew the roof off the place anyway. It was fucking unreal, and made me a big fan of them. So I'm glad to have enjoyed some music I'm familiar with, as well as found some new shit. And I've told you before, like, I'm terrible at finding new music. So, and it was also fun finding these guys on social media because they're very active. They're younger and they interact more. So turns out one of the singers of one of the bands that played is like a barber full-time down the street from me. So I'm kind of tempted to fucking go get my haircut there and chat him up a little bit. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of cool music, good time, and I'm looking forward to checking out some more live music soon.
Awesome. I'm glad that you enjoyed Evergreen. Kevin.
I'm going to try something different. I want a vote from each of you. I have something to say about beer, and I have something to say about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
All right.
Who's voting for what?
Wait, huh? I don't.
We have to choose between them, is what you're saying?
Choose between the two.
Marvel.
Mike?
Beer.
Well, then the tie goes to Marvel, because obviously. So I have recently, with my wife, been watching.
We were voting on what your last call was going to be. Okay, never mind.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, I thought we had to choose between them as if like one is going away for life.
That's what I thought that was for.
Really? This is not a good lead into any of this.
I would rather a last call about Marvel, so go ahead.
Let's go into my last call about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, guys. Let's pretend, Mike, cut that, and we'll pretend that we're professionals and we know what the hell we're talking about. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, my wife and I have gone through and watched everything in timeline order. And it's taken a couple months to get this done. I have now got up to Spider-Man No Way Home, which is not streaming yet. And I've already watched Hawkeye because I watched it when it came out. So it's the only thing on the other side of it I have watched. And I just want to say, as a huge fan of the MCU and movies, TV, basically that's all I really care about outside of beer. What a amazing thing that they have built. And for anyone who doesn't think that it's real art, you're crazy. You're insane, and you are blind to the fact that this is layered, incredible storytelling. Yes, it's from a giant corporation. Yes, it is big budget, and I'm sure because of its success, it's hard to get small indie films produced. And I hear you on that. I feel bad about that. But if you watch the making of Hawkeye, the Avengers Assembled series on Disney Plus, and you see the care and the detail they put into replicating the Fraction series of Hawkeye, and all the little details they put into absolutely everything they do, and how much care they take with these characters, and the layers of storytelling they do. It's great. And I'm a guy who loves Wes Anderson and Paul Thomas Anderson and Michel Gondry and great cinema that I was watching when I was in my 20s. This is incredible storytelling, extremely fun, and builds a wonderful universe that I've enjoyed so much. So I know that there is a snobbishness looking down on that and saying that it's everything that's wrong with cinema these days and everything that's wrong with entertainment. It's absolutely spectacular. And watching them back to back, even the movies that were bad, something like The Dark World with Thor, I enjoyed it the second time around. Even movies like the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk, I enjoyed it the second time around for what it was and seeing what they were trying to do. Even before the MCU really came into, it was still in its embryonic state. So that's what I got.
It would be fun to be able to record Patreon episodes of talking about just bullshit like this.
I have so much I want to say in response to that.
Most of it negative, I'm guessing, Joel, right?
No, it's like the one thing I'm not negative about. It's like practically one of the only things I live for. Christ. Spider-Man is still in theaters. You should just go. It's not going to be the same experience because it's 2 months later and no one's going to be there. And, opening night is just something entirely different. But, fucking Doctor Strange is coming soon, and there's already been, 2 trailers and multiple TV spots. So I've seen
all the breakdowns of all the trailers. I'm there. You are lucky, Mike, that our episode, Joel and I's episode without you, did not just break down into us discussing our favorite Avengers. Because it was likely. It was likely. And we restrained ourselves. We took a breath and we said, wait a minute. This is United We Drink, not United We Watch Marvel movies. And we just went with it, and we tried to do you proud. But I'll tell you this. You are in a situation, through no fault of your own, where you can't be on the podcast again. I make no promises.
It sounds like a threat, but I will not take it as such. All right. So I think that... plugs. Plug time. Kevin, you want to plug Barrel of Monks? Great. Awesome. Joel, what do you want to
You're
plug?
welcome.
I am Florida DUH Brewer on Instagram. I am Joel Brews on Twitter until I eventually can't take it anymore and throw my phone in the ocean.
That's unfair to your phone just because of one app that you can uninstall.
I don't even have the app. It's in my fucking browser. I can't get away from it.
Parental controls. Your wife needs to put parental controls on your phone. You can follow me at Mike Loves Beer on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow the show at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. We are on all of the major podcast streaming services: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Overcast, wherever fine podcasts are found. If we're not on a service that you like, let me know, and at our email address or any of those social media things, and I will do whatever it takes to get on there. Almost whatever it takes. Please check out the brands and sponsors that we love oh so dear on our website at unitedwedrink.com/sponsors, such as Made In, Cookware, Liquid Death, Water, who now have flavors available to you. If you want to buy a shirt, button, sticker, coffee mug, whatever, check that out at our store, unitedwedrink.com/store. Other than that, we will be back in a couple weeks with a brand new episode. And probably hear some more Marvel talk. Probably.
God willing.
For Joel, Kevin, I'm Mike. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Flavors.